I'm Paula, and these are my breasts. Well, these are fake, because my real ones tried to kill me. Actually, just the left one. The meds that I'm taking are helping to keep me alive, but they're part of a trifecta of healing because there are no magic pills. The other two are the emotional and spiritual sides. I've always been a spiritual person, just not a religious one. For me, life is just endless experiences, some joyous and some painful, but not good or bad. But these beliefs would be put to the test when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 36 while I was on active duty in the Navy. When most people hear the C word, they expect to hear a sad story about fear. Mine's different. I don't have time for fear. Rusting into the magnitude of having a fatal disease can take you out pretty quick. So denial for someone with addictive illness can be deadly. Denial for someone with cancer can be life-saving. This is the part of spirituality that knows it's not good or bad, it just is. Growing up in chaos teaches you a kind of resiliency that has carried me through my life. It's a combination of the goddess and the warrior, and is the mechanism for survival, whether that's physical, spiritual, or emotional. So I'm often labeled the strong woman, but being that way can get exhausting. Because people depend on me to be the empathic listener, they often freak out when I'm having a vulnerable moment, and they all disappear. That's when resiliency is the only thing left. So I was an air crewman on P-3 Orion, and I was getting ready to transfer out of the squadron. During my exit flight physical, the physician's assistant asked me to feel a spot in my left breast. Felt like a tiny split pea-sized lump. Next day, I was at the Army hospital. So the doctors, Colonel Careless and Colonel Whatever, dismissively told me that it didn't show up on mammogram, they didn't think it was anything, but if I wanted to do a biopsy, I said, if you're asking me if I want you to stick a needle in my breast, I'm going to tell you no. So they told me they would keep an eye on me. Nobody did, and 6 months later, I spotted a dimple in the same spot as the split pea, and I knew what that meant. So big shout out to military medicine. Anger, hurt, and fear arose, but my spirituality reminded me, this wasn't happening to me, this was happening for me. I just had to figure out the purpose. So Colonel Good God Gorgeous did the biopsy. Hey, when you got cancer, you take the perks where you can get them, okay? He asked to see the tissue slide before it was sent to pathology. By now, I was working as an addictions counselor, and so I was watching his non-verbs for any sign of acknowledgement. I think to try to spare my anxiety, he was completely stoic. Those next 10 days were pretty crazy-making, waiting for the results, but I knew. So then to decide on a treatment plan. So no one died from too much information. So my surgeon, Colonel Handsome, and I talked about different surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and clinical trials. 6 hours later, I was completely overwhelmed. I asked him, if this was your wife with the same diagnosis, what would you tell her to do? He told me to get a lumpectomy, chemo, radiation, and live a long, happy life. I felt hopeful. It was a 2.5 centimeter, estrogen positive, ductal invasive carcinoma in situ with one of 31 lymph nodes involved, stage 2, almost stage 3. So I met the support nurse, Angel, who asked me if I wanted to join the support group. Now, I'm not much for a bunch of whiny women. Well, boy, was I in for a surprise. These were not a bunch of whiny women. At my first meeting, they were talking about reconstructive surgery. An officer's wife, Mrs. Bravery, asked if we wanted to see the work she had done. So they drew the curtains, and off came her dress, and there she stood, half naked, with 2 breasts that looked exactly alike, only one had been built from her ab muscle. No one in the room blinked an eye, but I was shocked at how brave these strong cancer goddess warriors were. These women would teach me how the goddess part of me would help me nurture myself and heal. Chemotherapy is a bitch. I don't recommend it if you got nothing to do on a Tuesday. A year later, after completing treatment, I was celebrating the end of a semester as an undergrad. Professor Calm, who happened to be a rainforest shaman, and seemingly looking into my third eye, asked me in a very serene voice, "Paula, have you asked your inner being why cancer in the left breast and not the right?" I was confused, but intrigued. He told me that I was too out of touch with the goddess on the left side and too present with the warrior on the right. Sound kind of woo-woo, huh? Well, I felt naked and exposed, but he was right. I am the first female combat air crewman in the United States Navy, and I was trying my best to fit in with the boys' club. I had neglected the feminine side, and I was completely out of balance. That's why this was happening for me, to get back to a more authentic me. I was off active duty in the reserves, and the doctors at the VA on 4 different occasions were certain that it was back, certain that I needed a biopsy, and then they'd run one more test and they'd all change their minds. VA healthcare system was driving me fucking nuts. So I wanted to be like Mrs. Bravery. So I asked, how crazy would it be if we took them both off and started from scratch? All parties agreed. We'd do prophylactic bilateral mastectomy with implants and enhance the feminine side in the process. So Dr. Analytical and Dr. Laid Back brought in a bunch of prosthetic breasts, some silicone, some saline. So I was able to feel them and poke them and squeeze them. But then I told the docs, this wasn't really working for me. And I asked them if they had some testicles I could fondle instead. It's true. For the first time, I got Dr. Analytical to crack a smile. And all at once, he seemed more human to me, and I felt more connected to both of them. I felt safe. Oh, they built my left breast from my lat muscle, and nipples are made like the insides of toilet paper rolls. If you make it to 5 years, you're good. If you make it to 10, you're golden. I was feeling hopeful reaching this milestone, and I was feeling more connected with myself than I had. But 13 years after my original diagnosis, and just 2 years after mastectomy, I metastasized to my sternum. Not one time did I ever think this thing would beat me, and now it was back. That means stage 4. A twinge of fear arose, but it was quickly quelled by my kick-ass and take names attitude. After 3 short rounds of radiation, I was up and running again, not even an inconvenience to my work schedule. Years later, I fractured my sternum in the same spot, and now I have a titanium plate in my chest, kind of like a little shield over my heart. Though I was starting to feel a bit like Frankenstein. But gratitude became part of the treatment plan because this wasn't happening to me, this was happening for me. So they wanted to put me on new immunotherapy medication. But to do this, I would need a complete hysterectomy. That was the easiest surgery I've ever been through, and I'm up to 21 so far. They sell immunotherapy like it's better than chemotherapy, but it's only slightly better than chemo. I was pretty sure I was contributing to global warming with the hideous hot flashes that went on day and night. After several years, I asked to get off my meds due to the litany of side effects that they create. One of my least favorite is that I would shed like a cat. The tumor board agreed. I felt secure that I was doing what I needed for my physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. I was feeling closer to the goddess than I had before. Again, 12 years after metastasizing, during a routine PET scan, it was making a comeback. Fuck me running. And this time in my sacrum, like literally a pain in my ass. And then I had to get my head around if I could do chemo again. But I figured if I was still here, apparently I still had work to do. I still hadn't quite got that balance thing back yet. When I met with the oncologist, Dr. Empathy, I asked her when we'd start chemo. And she told me, Paula, you're not gonna do chemo. We're gonna start you on new meds, but you don't get to get off them this time. She was my new best friend. 14 rounds of radiation, and again, 0 side effects. I swear to God, I am the luckiest person in the world. However, the side effects from my new meds are as long as my left leg, which is an inch longer than my right leg due to knee replacement. You should just frickin' pitch a tent and charge admission. While other people are still struggling with this same disease, all these years later, I'm still standing. And now I've learned what real healing is. That is to find the balance between the goddess and the warrior. I've never felt more comfortable in my own skin, and I've met some of the most amazing people, from Mrs. Bravery to Colonel Handsome to Dr. Analytical. They've been my lifesavers. Look, cancer's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I wouldn't trade it back for all the money in the world. This isn't happening to me. This is happening for me. I am a breast cancer survivor, goddess, and warrior. But sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm not 10 feet tall and bulletproof. One day cancer's probably gonna take me out. But not today. Not today. Thank you.